Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Mormonism with the Murph, where we do a fair and objective analysis of the Church's truth claims, history, doctrine and policy. And we're continuing this multi-episode series looking at Joseph Smith's first vision and some of the controversial aspects. In part 5, if you didn't watch it, we looked at Joseph's theology of God. We based it on a video by Grant Palmer, who was former CS director and historian for the church. And we looked at the claim, did Joseph's theology of God evolve with his changing first vision accounts? We looked at some things that support that theory, and then some scriptures and some documents that would tend to go against it. In part 6, we're going to look at other visions that were similar to Joseph Smith's happening in his area. So let's first start off by reading a quote. This comes from fairlatterdaysaints.org. I'll put the link in the description. So they say, "There were at the time people who went to the woods to pray after reading the Bible, and as a result received visions and epiphanies. The Encyclopedia of Mormonism noted that initial skepticism towards Joseph Smith's testimony was understandable because others had made similar claims to receiving revelations from God." So claiming to have visions was something that was quite common in the area. Similarly, the church's new narrative history, Saints, notes that after Joseph's vision, when he spoke to the reverend about his vision, at first the preacher treated his words lightly. People claim to have heavenly visions from time to time. Visionaries are not that uncommon in environments where people are routinely open to the divine. And this was during the time of the Second Great Awakening. There was revivals, there was people converting to Christianity, specifically Protestantism. And there was a time where lots of people were converting and claiming to see visions. This comes from Mormon Think. This is what they have to say. So in modern times, if someone said they had a vision, it would seem extraordinary, or more likely not believable. However, in the early 1800s, having visions wasn't perceived to be all that uncommon. Even Joseph Smith's father claimed to have a vision. People believed in magic, seer stones, divining rods, etc., and people claiming to have visions weren't seen as all that strange, as it probably would be today. Like much of Joseph's work, the first vision is strikingly similar to someone else's story. The following are accounts of visions similar to Joseph Smith's first vision. All of these accounts appeared in print before Joseph Smith's first vision was published. So critics would make the claim that Joseph is borrowing or maybe taking from other people's visionary accounts from his environment, that influenced his own first vision narrative. Let's just have a look at some of the similar visions that were happening in his area. So this is Norris Stearns, and this was in 1815. He says, "I saw two spirits, which I knew at the first sight, but if I had the tongue of an angel, I could not describe their glory, for they brought the joys of heaven with them. One was God, my maker, almost in bodily shape like a man. His face was, as it were, a flame of fire, and his body as it had been a pillar and a cloud. In looking steadfastly to discern features, I could see none, but a small glimpse would appear in some other place. Below him stood Jesus Christ, my Redeemer, in perfect shape, like a man. His face was not ablaze, but had the countenance of fire, being bright and shining. His Father's will appeared to be his. All was condescension, peace, and love." So this account, Norris claims that he saw God and Jesus Christ both in bodily shape, similar, you could say, to Joseph Smith's vision, where he sees the Father and the Son. I think the phrasing, "if I had the tongue of an angel," that does sound very similar. I think the same quote is used in a chapter in Alma. It could be Alma 29. So some similar wording there. Elias Smith. So in 1816, a minister by the name of Elias Smith, he published a book in which he told of his conversion. And there's some similarities to Joseph's account. It says, "I went into the woods, a light appeared from heaven. My mind seemed to rise in that light to the throne of God and the Lamb. The Lamb once slain appeared to my understanding, and while viewing him, I felt such love to him as I never felt to anything earthly. It is not possible for me to tell how long I remained in that situation." Alexander Campbell. So he was a leader of the Campbellite movement. He wrote this on March 1st, 1824, concerning the revivals that were taking place in the state of New York. He says that enthusiasm flourishes. This man was regenerated when asleep by a vision of the night. That man heard a voice in the wood saying, "Thy sins be forgiven thee." A third saw his Saviour descending to the tops of trees at noonday. So there's lots of people claiming to hear a voice, having their sins forgiven, claiming to see God or Jesus in a grove of trees. Asa Wilde in 1823 claimed to have a revelation which is similar to the story of Joseph Smith. It was published in the Wayne Sentinel. This was a paper which the Smith family subscribed to. This was October 22nd, 1823. It says, "It seemed as if my mind was struck motionless, as well as into nothing, before the awful and glorious majesty of the great Jehovah. He then spake. He also told me that every denomination of professing Christians had become extremely corrupt." And that was a similar message that was given to Joseph Smith. He was told that to join on the churches, that every church, every denomination was not following the gospel. Billy Hibbard in 1825, so he was a New York preacher. He published his memoirs in 1825, and he included this experience of meeting Jesus and God the Father when he was a young boy. He says, "When I came to the place of prayer, I kneeled down and closed my eyes. With my hands uplifted towards the heavens, I saw Jesus Christ at the right hand of God, looking down upon me, and God the Father looking upon him. The look of Jesus removed the burden of my sins, and he spoke these words, 'Be faithful unto death, and this shall be thy place of rest.'" Solomon Chamberlin in 1829. So he was an early member of the church, and he published a pamphlet of his experience before he met Joseph Smith. So he says, quote, "Dissatisfied with the religions he had tried, Chamberlin prayed for further guidance, and in 1816, according to his account, the Lord revealed to me in a vision of the night an angel, whom Chamberlin asked about the right way. The angel told him that the churches were corrupt, and that God would soon raise up an apostolic church. Chamberlin printed up an account of his visions and was still distributing them and looking for the apostolic church when he stopped in Palmyra." And it's very possible that he did, experience this vision. Obviously, this is personal. We can't know for sure. And perhaps that apostolic church that he was told to wait for was the church that Joseph Smith restored. This is what Fair Latter-day Saints have to say about other visions happening similar to Joseph Smith's in his area. So the fact is, contrary to our current way of telling his story, the first vision was not the beginning of Joseph's call as a seer. His vision signaled the beginning of the restoration. It did not begin the work of the restoration. It steered him away from joining one of the competing denominations. It was Joseph's subsequent encounters with Moroni that made him a seer and eventually the founding prophet of a fledgling church, not his initial vision, which was initially for him a private event by which he was reluctant to talk, though eventually he dictated some accounts that were found and published during our lifetime. Joseph told a few people about it, word got around, and this caused him much trouble with Protestant preachers. So we would tend to tell the narrative the first vision is the beginning of the restoration and it's the beginning of his prophetic call, but Fair Latter-day Saints are stating that it was more a personal vision to Joseph Smith to steer him away from joining any of the other churches, and his prophetic call as a seer came with his visitations with Moroni and his call to translate the gold plates. So conclusion, so visions of God and Jesus were not unique to Joseph Smith. Others seem to also be experiencing heavenly visions during the period of the early 1800s, during these revival periods. There are some similarities between Joseph's account and that of others, but it doesn't necessarily prove that Joseph Smith borrowed or plagiarized from these other accounts. And it's very possible that they may have still had a genuine visionary experience. It doesn't disprove or invalidate Joseph's experience, and we can't prove that he was plagiarizing. But you're free to draw your own interpretations. I'll put some links in the description where you can read through these accounts more in detail on the Mormon Think website, and you can also have a look at some responses by Fair Latter-day Saints. Thank you so much for watching. In the next part, we're going to be looking at what did other people have to say about Joseph Smith's first vision. So we're going to be looking at his mother, leaders of the church. Did they believe it was the Father and the Son, or did they claim it was the angel that appeared to him? So we're going to be diving into that in the next part. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like, please share, please subscribe. If you care to donate, you can to my PayPal, stephen.murphy1996 at outlook.com. And I will see you on the next episode. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.